At a family picnic, my in-laws introduced me as the one who finally got him to settle down. For now. I smiled, handed them a plate, and said, "Here you go, a little bit of humble pie to go with that shade." It was a bright Saturday afternoon in Central Park, New York City. The sun cast dappled shadows through the canopy of trees, and the air buzzed with the laughter of families enjoying the weekend. We had gathered near the Great Lawn, a sprawling 55-acre expanse known for its lush greenery and vibrant atmosphere. Picnic blankets dotted the landscape, and the scent of grilled food wafted through the air. My husband, Mark, and I arrived carrying a cooler filled with homemade dishes. Mark's family had organized this picnic as a casual get-together, a tradition they upheld every summer. As we approached the group, I felt a familiar knot tighten in my stomach. Despite being married to Mark for over 3 years, I still felt like an outsider among his relatives. Patricia, my mother-in-law, was the first to greet us. Her silver hair was neatly styled, and she wore a pastel blouse that complemented her pearl necklace. She had an air of sophistication that was both intimidating and unapproachable. With a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, she turned to the assembled family members and said, "Everyone, this is Sarah, the one who finally got our dear Mark to settle down, for now." A few chuckles rippled through the group. I felt my cheeks flush, but I maintained my composure. Years of subtle digs and passive-aggressive comments had steeled me for moments like this. I reached into the cooler, pulled out a freshly baked pie, and handed it to Patricia with a sweet smile. "Here you go, a little bit of humble pie to go with that shade." The chuckles ceased, replaced by an awkward silence. Patricia's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment, I thought she might say something. Instead, she pursed her lips, took the pie, and turned away. I exhaled slowly, feeling a small sense of victory. Mark and I met during our final year at Columbia University. He was studying law, and I was pursuing a degree in journalism. Our paths crossed at a campus coffee shop, where we both reached for the last blueberry muffin. Laughing over the coincidence, we decided to split it. That simple encounter led to hours of conversation, and before we knew it, we were inseparable. After graduation, we moved in together in a cozy apartment in Brooklyn. Mark proposed during a weekend getaway to the Catskills, and we were married 6 months later in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. While my family welcomed Mark with open arms, his family, particularly Patricia, was less enthusiastic about me. Patricia came from old money and had high expectations for her only son. She envisioned him marrying someone from a similar background, perhaps a debutante or the daughter of a business magnate. Instead, he chose me. A middle-class girl from Queens with dreams of becoming an investigative journalist. From our first meeting, Patricia made it clear that she believed I was beneath Mark. At family gatherings, she would often make pointed comments about my career choices, my upbringing, and even my appearance. "It's so nice that you have hobbies," she once said when I mentioned a recent article I had published. "But when do you plan to focus on starting a family?" Mark would squeeze my hand under the table, a silent gesture of support, but rarely confronted his mother directly. The picnic incident was a catalyst for change. After that day, I decided I could no longer endure Patricia's subtle jabs and condescending remarks. I began documenting every instance of her behavior, saving text messages, recording conversations where legally permissible, and noting dates and times of incidents. I wasn't sure what I would do with this information, but having a record made me feel empowered. One evening, Mark noticed me jotting down notes in a journal. Curious, he asked what I was writing. I hesitated but decided to be honest. "I'm keeping track of the things your mother says to me," I admitted. He looked surprised. "Why?" "Because it's been going on for years, and I need to have evidence if I ever decide to address it formally." Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know she's difficult, but maybe it's just her way of—" I don't know, trying to connect. I raised an eyebrow. Mark, telling me that my career is a cute hobby or implying that I'm not good enough for you isn't exactly a way to connect. He nodded slowly. You're right. I'm sorry. I should have addressed this sooner. His acknowledgement was a relief, but I knew that confronting Patricia would be a different challenge altogether. A few weeks later, Mark and I were invited to his parents' home on the Upper East Side for dinner. The evening started off uneventfully, with polite small talk and discussions about current events. However, as dessert was served, a decadent chocolate souffle Patricia had prepared, she turned to me with a saccharine smile. Patricia cut into the souffle with slow, deliberate movements, as if even dessert was some kind of performance. She turned to me with that same fake smile. I heard you're still chasing stories, she said. Mark must be very patient. Most women your age are more focused on family by now. Mark's fork clinked against his plate. My heart pounded. Not tonight, I thought. Not again. I actually just wrapped a major story on corruption in city housing. It's getting picked up nationally, I said, keeping my tone even. Patricia raised her brows. That's nice. Hopefully one day you'll have something more meaningful to focus on. I opened my mouth to respond, but Mark cut in. Mom, enough. She blinked, surprised. Excuse me. I said enough. You don't get to keep disrespecting my wife and act like it's nothing. The room went quiet. His father shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but said nothing. Mark rarely stood up to Patricia, and definitely not like this. I watched her face tighten. Well, maybe if she respected this family, she'd get the same in return, Patricia snapped. I looked at her, then at Mark. I was done. I've respected this family more than you ever respected me, and if anyone wants to talk about respect, I've got receipts. Literally. I pulled out my phone and tapped the folder marked P. Inside, timestamps, messages, even short voice memos. I'd never meant to actually use it, but I wasn't bluffing either. Sarah, Mark said, a warning in his voice. No, she needs to hear it, I said. I've taken the hits. I've smiled through the digs. I let you belittle me for 3 years. Not anymore. I turned to Patricia. You want to know the truth? Mark didn't settle down. He grew up. And maybe you can't handle the fact that he did it without needing your permission. She stared at me, eyes cold. You'll regret this. But I didn't back down. I already regret not speaking up sooner. That night, Mark and I left early. The ride home was silent for a while. Then he said, she's going to try something. You know that, right? I know. And she did. A week later, I got a message from one of my editors. An anonymous tip had come in, questioning the ethics of my reporting on a sensitive story. Nothing was named directly, but the suggestion was clear. I had manipulated a source. If it stuck, it could end my career. I knew it was Patricia. The twist? The tip included a quote from a private conversation I'd had on the phone at their house. She recorded me. Mark was furious. He confronted his parents. His dad, always silent, admitted there were security devices in the house. For safety, he claimed. But Patricia didn't deny it. You said you had receipts, she told him. So do I. Mark called me from outside their building, pacing. She's playing dirty. What do we do? I was already on it. Send me the model of their home security system, I told him. I need to know how they're storing the recordings. I had contacts. Journalists need to. I made a few quiet calls. One of them, a cybersecurity friend, helped me pull a small miracle. We found the storage link and saw it. She had dozens of files. But she didn't just record me. She had files on other family members, too. There were audio clips of her gossiping about Mark's sister, how her marriage was falling apart, how her kids were slow learners. There were recordings where she talked about how she manipulated family votes for a shared inheritance trust. Patricia was many things, but discreet wasn't one of them. I downloaded 5 of the worst clips and saved them to a secure drive. I didn't go public. I didn't need to. Instead, I invited Mark's sister, Aunt Lorraine, and a couple of other key relatives for brunch. Nothing fancy, just waffles and hard truth. I played the clips. They were stunned. His sister cried. I thought she loved my kids, she whispered. She loves control, I said. That day, the family shifted. The golden pedestal Patricia sat on started to crumble. Word spread. Quietly at first. Some relatives pulled away. Others reached out to me. Mark's dad stopped answering my husband's calls. At a family fundraiser, Patricia showed up alone and everyone noticed. She called Mark the next day, screaming, "How dare she air our private conversations?" "You recorded them," Mark said calmly. "You're destroying this family." "No, you did that years ago." She tried to play the victim. Said I was manipulating him, that I had a vendetta. But the truth was, I didn't need revenge. I just wanted to stop the bleeding. Now, she was the one bleeding out. And I wasn't done yet. Just when I thought things were cooling down, we got hit with another twist. It came in the form of a letter. Not an email. A printed letter, delivered in a thick, white envelope, addressed to Mark. Inside was a copy of a legal document. Patricia had quietly moved to restructure the family trust. According to the new draft, Mark was being removed as a trustee. No warning, no discussion. When he called her, she was cold. "This is for your own good," she said. "You're not thinking clearly. You're letting that woman ruin your judgment." "That woman is my wife," Mark said. "And she's poisoning this family." He hung up. We got our lawyer involved. Turns out Patricia had already started moving funds to a private account under her name, funds that were supposed to be split between her children when she passed. She couldn't empty the trust entirely without other signatures, but she'd found a way to limit access and stall distributions. It wasn't just a power play. It was punishment. But here's where the twist turns into fire. Our lawyer flagged some questionable withdrawals going back years. Some of the money was being routed to a shell company in Delaware. Guess whose name showed up on one of the documents? Her bridge club friend, Cynthia. Cynthia was listed as the consultant receiving quarterly payments from the trust. Thing is, Cynthia was 84 and had late-stage dementia. She didn't even remember her own grandkids, let alone sign off on a consulting deal. We had fraud, and not just petty fraud. This was the kind of thing that, if exposed, could trigger a formal investigation into the family trust. At this point, I had everything. Proof of surveillance. Proof of slander. And now? Financial misconduct tied to a vulnerable person. I didn't go nuclear. Yet. I called a quiet meeting. Just me, Mark, his sister Elise, and Aunt Lorraine. We laid out the facts. Mark's sister was shaking with anger. Elise had always been quiet, never stood up to their mother. But this time was different. "I want her out," she said. "I want her out of the trust, out of our lives, everything." I warned them. "If we do this, there's no going back." Lorraine nodded. Back isn't an option anymore. They filed for a court review of the trust. Legally, that triggered an audit. Patricia was furious. I mean, screaming into voicemail, middle of the night call kind of furious. She showed up at our building one evening, dressed in all black like she was attending a funeral. "You think you've won?" she hissed when Mark stepped out to confront her in the lobby. "This isn't about winning," he said. "This is about accountability. You'll be sorry." "No," he said. "You will." We didn't let her in. And 2 days later, the Real bomb dropped. Mark's dad, Thomas, called him. "Come over." Alone. I didn't like it, but Mark went. He came back an hour later, pale. "She's not my mother," he said. "What?" "She's not." Thomas showed me paperwork, birth records, DNA tests. He didn't want me to find out like this, but Patricia, she adopted me when I was a baby. I sat down hard. Apparently, Mark's biological mother died during childbirth. Patricia had been her cousin and stepped in to raise him after the father bailed. She had legally adopted him, but never told him. She said she loved me like her own, Mark whispered. But all this, it was about control. It made sense now. Why she was obsessed with shaping his life. Why she treated him like property. Because she never saw herself as a mother, only a keeper. Patricia's secrets were unraveling fast. She wasn't just a manipulative matriarch. She was also a fraud, a liar, and possibly facing legal consequences for how she'd handled the trust. And the twist about Mark? That opened a whole new door. Technically, if the adoption hadn't been fully finalized and our lawyer suspected there were issues, she might not have full legal authority over Mark's portion of the trust to begin with. She might have been operating under a lie, one that could undo everything she built. Mark didn't want revenge. But me? I just wanted justice. The clean kind. So we kept digging. Because now, it was way deeper than just shade at a picnic. And I was ready to bury the whole damn tree. After we found out about Mark's adoption, everything moved fast. Our lawyer filed a petition to challenge Patricia's control over the trust, based on fraud, financial abuse, and misrepresentation of legal guardianship. We weren't the only ones. Elise and Lorraine filed their own motions. Meanwhile, I was contacted by an old colleague, someone who now worked for a well-known national paper. I hadn't reached out to the media, but word was getting around. When you're part of an old money family, secrets don't stay buried for long. My colleague asked me off the record, "Is there a story here?" I told him, "There's a damn novel." Patricia's reputation started to fall apart like wet tissue paper. The story eventually broke, not from me, but from one of the family's inner circle who couldn't keep quiet. Headlines popped up. Manhattan heiress accused of misusing family trust, Bridge Club cover-up, for $100,000 missing from family inheritance surveillance, secrets, and shame. The war inside a New York power family. Patricia was livid. She blamed me for everything. For turning Mark against her. For exposing the family. For destroying decades of work. She even showed up at my office one day, escorted out by security before she could get past the lobby. While the legal battles dragged on, I made a quiet decision. I had my own flaws in this. I had let the passive aggressiveness slide for too long. I'd swallowed insults and played polite for the sake of peace. But I also knew that once I fought back, I didn't stop. Maybe I liked the power a little too much. Maybe deep down I wanted her to suffer. I wasn't proud of that. But I didn't regret it. We had one last card to play. The voice recordings, including the ones where Patricia bragged about locking down the trust so Mark's wannabe journalist wife couldn't sniff a dollar. Our lawyer submitted them in court. The judge's face said everything. In the courtroom, Patricia sat stone-faced, her pearls tight around her neck like a noose. The judge ordered a full audit of the trust. Her accounts were frozen. She was removed as trustee. Elise was named interim manager. She stood up and screamed, an actual scream. Security came in. It was surreal. She pointed at me and shouted, "This is all your fault." I stood. "No, you did this to yourself." She was escorted out. That was the last time I saw her in person. She moved out of the Upper East Side. The co-op board had asked her to resign quietly after the scandal. Her friends stopped calling. Even her husband, Thomas, filed for separation. Mark and I bought a small brownstone in Brooklyn. Nothing flashy, but ours. Paid for by our own work, not family money. Elise handled the trust with calm and dignity. She made sure every cousin, grandchild, and sibling got their fair share. No more secrets. No more games. 6 weeks after the courtroom breakdown, I got a letter. No name. Just my address in careful handwriting. Inside was a photo. A young woman, holding a baby. On the back, her name was Joy. She was Mark's real mother. She was my sister. Below that, I always thought she'd pick you. You're like her. That's why I hated you. No signature. Just truth. Did I go too far? Maybe. Did she deserve it? Absolutely. Sometimes revenge isn't fire and fury. Sometimes it's a quiet plate of humble pie, served cold, with every single bite swallowed whole. And me? I made mistakes. I fought too late, and then I fought too hard. But I don't regret protecting my name, my marriage, my place. People like Patricia think control is love. But real love fights back and wins.